Basically, I have 36 years of motorcycle transmission experience, and I had 10 years experience before I opened my own shop doing nothing but motorcycle transmissions. So we're all trained professionals, and this is all we do. We do nothing but motorcycle transmission. Well, basically with the BMWs, the problems with the K-models is that they don't have any undercut on the gears, and what undercutting is a dovetail cut on the dogs and the slots on the gears that will centrifugally pull themselves into gear. Most modern sport bikes have undercut transmissions from the factory, and the BMW is one that does not. And the problem with a transmission that doesn't have any undercut, dovetail on the dogs, what happens is, even when the bike is brand new, when it rolls off the showroom floor, the nature of the beast of a constant mesh type transmission is that the female gear gets engaged by the male gear, and what ends up happening is that you don't always get it exactly right. It's just the nature of the beast, and the fact that sometimes the dog hits the bridge of the slot. That's what we call the meat between the slots. We call that the bridge. And sometimes it hits the bridge and it skips over. And it will do that even when it's new, but you don't even notice it because you're talking milliseconds. It happens so fast, and we can't comprehend it. It happens so fast. But as it skips over, and it does finally drop in, and like I said, it's milliseconds, but as it skips over, it wears. As it wears, it skips over more. The more it skips over, the more it wears, and then you get to the point where now you start to notice hesitant shifting, you start to notice clunky shifting, and then you get to the point that the BMWs do, which most of the time it's second gear and sometimes fifth gear. What'll happen is you have a fixed gear on the input shaft that turns a freewheeling gear on the output shaft. And that happens even while you're in neutral. But what empowers that to the shaft is that a splined sixth gear that has a shift fork on it, when you shift the shifter, it rotates the shift drum, the male gear that's splined to the shaft moves over, and the male dogs engage with the female slots on that second gear. So the second gear is empowered to the output shaft via the mating of the sixth gear. When they get bad enough, what they do is they ratchet. And what that is, if it was a bike that had a chain on it, this is a shaft drive, but if you had a bike that had a chain on it, it would feel like the chain was skipping. And what's actually happening is that sixth gear is the nose of the dogs. They're round dogs. They get rounded, and so does the leading edge of the slot. So then what happens is it gets to the point, you might get to an RPM level of, say, 7,000 RPM, something like that, where it can no longer hold anymore, and the rounding edge acts as a fulcrum, and it pushes itself out of gear. Now, what ends up happening is that sixth gear will move over, the shift fork will flex the entire height of the dogs, which is about 1/4 of an inch, and it flexes out, and then it drops in, and it flexes out, and it drops in. And so you're getting this, it feels like you're running over railroad tracks. And if you get them out as soon as it starts happening, it is repairable. The replacement parts are available as far as all of the gaskets, the O-rings, the seals, detent spring, shift forks. There are no gears available. You have to buy a complete transmission, which is about $4,400. You get them out soon enough, they can be repaired. We hard face weld the tips of the dogs. We go in and we re-undercut everything. We recut everything and undercut it and put a 5-degree dovetail cut on the leading edges of the dogs and the slots so that when they touch, as soon as they touch, they centrifugally pull themselves in. A shift rotation from shift to shift is 60-degree rotation of the shift drum. Once you make it past 30 degrees, you're up and over the peak of the detent star, and it starts to drop back in on the other side. When you shift one that's not undercut, you basically have to rotate that shift drum a full 60 degrees. Once the transmission's undercut, once it goes about 45 degrees and those dogs touch, they centrifugally pull themselves in. So you could be a lazy shifter and you're still going to make every shift. And it's going to be a more positive shift, and it's going to shift every time nice and clean, and the longevity is going to be increased. The turnaround time right now for a job like that is about 2 weeks. Usually the cost on that runs about $1,800, but you end up with a transmission that is better than something you could buy from BMW. Even the replacement transmissions, I had one guy that had his original transmission went out at 8,000 miles. His replacement from BMW went 10,000 miles. We've repaired it. I have not had a single repair. We've been doing them now for probably 6 years now. Have not had a single call of any problems, any returns, or anything. So we can take care of your problem with your BMW K1200. Give us a call. Telephone number is 727-447-4552. My name is Mark, and I will answer the phone and talk to you. And it's a whole cassette. Like when they take it out, it comes out on a cassette. And the reason I don't think BMW sells any replacement parts is they're more part replacement oriented, not repair oriented.
Right.
So it's a complete transmission replacement because it's like a press fit into the housing.
Yeah.
And so you have to heat them to expand the housing, to expand the aluminum so that you can slide the gear clusters out. And when I put them back together again, I've got to heat the housing, and I got to work quick before the housing shrinks. Because if I don't get everything aligned and the housing starts to shrink, then I got to put it back in the oven and heat it again. And now I'm working with all hot parts instead of just the hot housing. Give us a call. Telephone number is 727-447-4552. My name is Mark, and I will answer the phone and talk to you.